Thank you for joining us for our annual interview series at ISHI 32. Today we have a special guest, Julie, joining us. Julie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Julie Sikorsky, and I'm currently the Forensic Biology Unit Manager at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. I've been with the agency for over 19 years now. I started off as a senior forensic scientist, so I was a bench DNA analyst for 10 years and then promoted to manager. So I've been a manager now for almost 10 years, and so it's been an interesting journey.
Wonderful. And I understand you're co-presenting a workshop this year.
I am. Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So we like to have a little fun. So the workshop is called You Deserve a Cookie, Navigating the Challenging World of Leadership in Forensic Biology. And the workshop is essentially, it's a management/leadership workshop. It's about managing in forensic biology, clearly by the title, but what about it makes it more difficult than managing in other units of forensic science? I don't think we're appreciated as much for the nuances that forensic biology has compared to our other units, and we wanted to give those managers an opportunity to hone their skills and really kind of talk to one another and find a kindred spirit and hopefully a support group.
What kind of unique challenges do people face in the field?
So forensic biology is, not only do we have the quality assurance standards, which every forensic laboratory has accreditation standards that they have to comply with, but we have the unique extra layer of the cake where we have the quality assurance standards, and that's unique to forensic biology. We also have more grant opportunities, and managing grants is also more of a complicating factor. Our training is incredibly long, so when we lose people, it has a detrimental effect. And everybody wants DNA on their cases, so we are struggling with backlogs, along with a lot of other myriad of things that we have to deal with.
Yeah. You know what I really like about the workshop format is you get a chance to really engage people and see what kind of complications they're facing. What came up?
Well, training that's why I brought that up. We didn't expect that to be such a big topic, was how do you train efficiently? Because it takes us about a minimum of about 18 months on average to train a full DNA analyst, and that's just the DNA training part. Some laboratories are more successful at training than others, but people struggle with that. How do you train and still have people doing casework? Because typically your trainers are coming off of casework to train, and it just a lot of the struggles that went with that. A lot of it was, not feeling supported by their upper management, no time, no resources, the typical ones that you're hearing, and I would say some of the issues we got were just, it's just good to be heard sometimes, and it's good to have someone else who's having a shared experience with struggles and talking with one another about that, and you feel heard, you feel validated with your struggles, and it kind of makes it a little bit easier.
Absolutely. Well, and I did notice some people after your workshop walking around with dots on their
Yes.
name tags. So it sounds like you did some personality and behavior work, maybe a DISC assessment, something like that.
We did a DISC assessment, and it was a very dynamic, involved process because we wanted to get people out of their seats. We didn't want to just lecture at them the whole time because that just gets boring. So Pam Marshall, who I believe you're going to be interviewing at some point, she led our DISC assessment section, and what we did was we had them actually take the assessment, decide where their predominant characteristic is, because no one is ever a D, an I, an S, or a C, just one of those things. You're all a combination because we're all multiple types of emotions and personalities, but what is your dominant trait? And so the trait that you got paired with was the colored dot that you had. You got to put that on your badge. So I'm excited. It was twofold. One was so that we could divide them into groups and they could really kind of talk about what their pluses and minuses were, the strengths and weaknesses of your personality type. But also, I can keep an eye on them throughout the symposium and go pick their brains on what they thought, as well as what's going on with them, and maybe engage a little bit more and just recognize them for being part of a really amazing workshop, as well as just being a part of a management team.
Yeah. Well, I think that's amazing. Yeah, you get a little bit of unique insight as you're working through the workshop.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay. And because I do think there are some unique challenges. You have backlogs, you have legislative mandates. So what are some strategies? How did you help people address those?
So we had an incredible panel and made up of a lot of experts in the field. And what we wanted those experts to have unique knowledge of forensic biology, but we also wanted them to have that leadership component as well, or that management component. And so we actually brought in Ray Wickenheiser as well as George Skiro, who have been managers for a long time, to address some of these more political things. And I know I'm more insulated because I'm more middle management. I've got a crime lab director I report to, whereas they've kind of moved through that hierarchy, one, being a technical leader and being bench analysts. So they're able to offer kind of more of the unique perspective of what we can do at our level in order to make sure we have the metrics. Because one of my favorite sayings is, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. And it's very important, especially with legislative initiatives or budgetary confines, or if you need a new piece of equipment, to have that data and how to prepare it and be able to pitch that to your crime lab director, who in turn pitches it to the major, whoever you report to, so that you can successfully get the resources that you needed. So a lot of it was metrics, a lot of it is good planning, and I would say the overarching theme of the workshop, which kind of came out, was communication. And that was the original reason we did the DISC assessment, because once you know yourself and you know how you like to be communicated with, you can communicate better with other people when you can kind of tell what their personality types are. And so it was like communicate, communicate, communicate. So we brought in Angie Vassilotti, who's done a lot of Lean Six Sigma projects. She was a DNA benchmarking analyst for a long time, and she did a whole section on communication, the importance of communication. And just when you think you have the right communication, you need to communicate more. And so that was a theme that we saw throughout, that you think you're being clear about something, but you really need to try more, and you'll get more done.
Well, that's remarkable. I mean, really, no matter what industry it is, looking at those gaps, and here when you're moving from analyst to leadership, there's just, things change.
Huge gaps. Yeah. Well, and most of the time, we're autonomous analysts. We're only concerned about what's happening right here, what's happening on my benchtop, what's happening with my cases, and you have to change that mindset. You have to go to an outward mindset where you're concerned. It's about the we, not the me. And so that's something that has to change, and no one prepares us for this. And that's another reason why we thought this workshop was so important, because there is no stepping stone. I mean, our community has gotten better, the forensic community in general, of offering leadership workshops and trainings. ASCLD does a really nice job. And then we brought in John Collins, who's a leadership coach, to also sit on our panel and be a speaker, to just kind of fill that gap where it's okay that you don't know what you're doing because no one told you how to do it. And I believe the stat that John said was that less than 10% of individuals in any field have natural ability to be a leader. And then in forensics and science, I guess, in general, it's even less than that, because we're typically kind of introverted. So it's a very hard gap to do, and that's why it was so important, for me at least, and for Pam and I, to put on this workshop.
No, we're so happy to have it here, and we've heard so many wonderful things about it already.
Thank you.
So it's incredible.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk more about you. How did you get interested in the field?
How did I get into forensics?
Yeah.
It's a funny story. So, like most of us, I was pre-med. My dad's a doctor, and I loved the difference he could make. So I went into school majoring in biochemistry. I went to UC San Diego, beautiful campus, loved my experience. About midway through, I discovered the other students that were med students I just didn't like the company. It didn't feel organic to me. It didn't feel very natural. So I was just like, okay, I'm kind of questioning, not sure what I'm gonna do. I still knew I was science. I was hardcore science. So I had might have been a biochemistry lab. And we did a technique called RFLP. I'm dating myself a little bit. And one of the assignments for the laboratory was to do a report on a technique you used in this laboratory. And I went to the library, because as one does when the internet is a baby, and I found this book by Lauren T. Kirby called DNA Fingerprinting. And I devoured the book. And it was all about using RFLP on DNA. And I was fascinated. I was hooked. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And thankfully, I had a family friend who worked for the San Diego Police Department. And at that point, there was no CSI. There was no nothing. Forensics was kind of this unknown thing. She got me into the crime laboratory to take a tour. And the guy says, biochemistry, no. We're phasing out RFLP. PCR is where it's at. So I went back literally that day, changed my major to molecular biology, got a volunteer job doing PCR, nested PCR in an HIV lab on campus, and that's all she wrote. And so I was just hooked from there, and then went to Marshall University I ended up getting 2 master's degrees there, one in forensic science and one in biomedical sciences. And I have such a passion for this field. It's just amazing to apply something I love, science, and be able to make such a difference with it. So that's my journey.
Well, I think your timing was perfect. Just watching how things have transformed over the last decade has been incredible.
Yes, a lot of changes. I mean, we're kind of sticking still with the PCR thing, but so much is happening, so many exciting developments, and we've always been a pretty forward-thinking laboratory. I mean, we're not necessarily the earliest adopters, but we're not far behind. We do like to get in there and try some things out, and I've always had a motto in our laboratory, if it can improve efficiency or quality, we'll take a look at it and see what we can bring to our analysts and to the citizens of Palm Beach County.
I love hearing the latest and greatest every year. What kind of challenges are you facing right now? Anything you can talk about that you're working on?
So I don't know necessarily about challenges, but like the newest things we're kind of working on. We all have challenges with validations because they keep changing things on us. But the thing I'm most excited about and super timely for this particular symposium is our efforts to do a disaster victim identification program. We are very into implementing rapid DNA right now. We have one rapid instrument online already, just doing standards, and we have another rapid instrument that we would like to make deployable to scenes should we need that, and we need to be prepared. And this morning's talk regarding the World Trade Center really underscored that. And so that's kind of our passion right now is to make that happen and to put the pieces in place so we're prepared if we are needed, and be able to serve at the best we possibly can.
Yes, I think that, this morning's talk definitely underscored how important that is and how far we've come, but yet how much more we can do.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice might you give somebody who's considering the field?
Well, it's a great field. It's a passion. It's a career, a profession. It's not a job. You have to be wed to this. This is something where every day is not going to be good, but there's some good in every day. And you have an important role to play where you can't yourself have a bad day, because everything you're doing is precious and there's so much impact that you have. So really think carefully. It's not the sexiest job. When you look at everything on TV, I love it. I like the TV shows. I watch it. I want to know what my jury's watching, but that's not real life. So you really have to have a calling. You have to be willing to make sacrifices, to expose yourself to the underbelly of society and be able to see the beauty of what you are doing and what you are bringing to the people that you serve.
Yeah, it's definitely, from the stories I've heard, it's certainly not easy, but that commitment to justice and making things better. I mean, at the end of the day, it's remarkable.
Exactly, and that's really what you have to focus on. I mean, there are times I wish I could put my children in a bubble and keep them away from the things that I see, but if not me, who? And that's really what I wanted to bring. It's like, I know I can do this. So I'm doing it for them, I'm doing it for you, I'm doing it for everybody else, and it's my calling. And I think for new forensic scientists, that's what they need to look at as. It's not money, it's not fame, it's not glory, but it's doing the right thing.
Absolutely. And I'm assuming you've been to ISHI before.
A couple times.
How have you found it? Past years, this year?
So, hands down, my favorite meeting. Sorry, all the other meetings. It is hands down my favorite meeting, and I think because it's so, you're very thoughtful in the topics that you pick and very timely in their presentation. You're discriminating as far as you don't accept everything, and you really kind of take the cream of the crop. And I also love it because of the connections and the camaraderie. To me, it's almost like a family reunion every time I come here. And this is my most coveted meeting. And so it's very hard for me not to come. And I made a rule finally, because I want to be a good servant leader, going with the leadership, where it's not all about me and my growth. I need to make sure my staff are growing as well. And even though I love this meeting and it's my favorite meeting, I want to give them the opportunity to have that as well. So I try and go every other year and then give others the opportunity. So this year I brought with me 2 analysts from the laboratory. It's their first ISHI, and I'm very excited. And this year is a little bit different because we're kind of a hybrid. We're a little virtual and a little in person, a little country, a little rock and roll. And it's very nice. It still has the same vibe, the same energy, and I love how adaptive we are, because that's just, you guys have outdone yourself. You always do.
That's always so nice to hear, and I think it would be a fun first year because we're half and half. You know, during some of the social events, you can really take your time and get to know people and have a great conversation.
Yes, you absolutely can, and you guys have good opportunities for that, so well done.
Well, we are so happy to have you here, and thank you for presenting.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. Next year.
Yes, definitely. Next year again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Julie. Have a great day.
Thank you.